Hey guys, first regardsman here, and I'll be talking about a new Skitarii class for Darktide with Mystery. Now, you've talked about the Skitarii before. I'm curious to hear your current opinion about having this class added to 40k Darktide, and just like where you think it would fit in the class dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, I still definitely stand by it. It is still absolutely my favorite pick. I know there's a lot of people in the Sister Battle camp, a couple people in the Rattling camp, right? And then there's scattered other survivors out there. But as far as like what I see people demanding, AdMech of some sort has got to be at the top of the list. I think Skitarii is like a very, very popular choice just because, I mean, there are so many awesome weapons and sort of like just like ideas you could draw from to like make this
It's
class
very
feel
thematic.
super cool. Yeah, and it would fit within lore too, which we can talk about in a minute, I guess. But yeah, I still super want that to happen. I just unfortunately don't see it happening like for class number 6 here, but they've already told us that there's more classes on the way. I think probably they'll cap out at 8. But time remains to tell.
I would be shocked if one of those was not a Skitarii or at least some kind of AdMech. Now, I think
Right.
it'd be pretty easy for them to like lean into a tech aspect for this because you have things like the Arbites, like the Cybermassive and stuff like that. It's a very thematic class. It's very easy just to like, okay, this is the Lex, you are the judge, and things like that. It's substantially different from the other classes in the game. And like, I think we talked off stream about this or off video about how it would be pretty easy to have the Skitarii basically play as like a caster melee hybrid versus having like a pure range character, basically like the veteran, which is like,
Mhm.
he's kind of a hybrid, but like he's really supposed to be focused on range. And you have like the Ogren and Arbites are like all melee all the time. So I'm kind of curious what you think about that.
Yeah, so this was my initial idea, like way back right after RBDs came out. I made a video like less than a month later, being like, "Hell yeah, the next class needs to be Skitarii," and it was like pretty much like that was my idea. It's like, yeah, we've already got 3 almost exclusively ranged characters. Then what if the next one is needs to be like have a ranged like lean to it so that we're like diversifying the play styles in the game. And for Skitarii, like that would be a very obvious choice because they have so many different like types of ranged weapons. They've got ones that can like paint targets and then fire seeker missiles after them. They've got ones that like basically give the enemy radiation poisoning and like wither their health away. Yeah, they've got so many crazy like technological wonders
Yeah,
in lore.
they could go way farther than they did with the Arbites. For Arbites, like they
Mhm.
are primarily like shock maulers and like beat cops occasionally for a lot of the planets.
Yeah.
And that is represented properly in their loadout where you have the Arbite shock maul, you have the extermination shotgun or the exterminator shotgun, and of course the cyber massive's like the huge draw for that. What do you think the huge draw for a Skitarii class would be? Because this would kind of have to bang. I think new classes are like some of the most
I
important
think
aspects of any horde shooter. So they'd be pretty on the nose with like, okay, this is what we're
yeah.
trying to sell you with our new class.
It depends on like what like, I don't know what they're trying to do. Like I really want to see what they're doing with this 6th class, which I'm thinking is Ganger, but we can talk about that in a different video, or maybe we already have. I don't know. But the like I think they might try to do like something special for each of these classes. If they've got the dog as like the extra special thing for that, what if they can come up with like some like new mechanic that only the Skitarii can use? And like I was thinking, a lot of Skitaris like replace parts of their bodies, or they have extra cybernetic limbs, and basically you just end up like having an augment that actually affects your gameplay and is physically on your character, like the ability to, I don't know, interact with like extra things at a time, or like hold a second range weapon. Something crazy, I don't know, something crazy like that just kind of like, you need to set the gameplay apart. It can't just be like weapons, right? That's too lame at this point, because we've already got the shooty guy, that's the veteran. We've already got the magic guy, that's the psyker. So if you're gonna do that, you need to either you probably just need to make the weapons like super impressive and very much thematic with the lore, which I think Dark always do a great job with like making their weapons like pop, but also like give it something like really interesting like that to play around with, where yeah, you can like augment yourself and have all these different
I
cool
think having an
abilities.
augment would be really cool. Like you make like a melee focused Skitarii versus a range focused Skitarii.
Mhm.
I think they should always stay within like that hybrid archetype, but having like these kind of like niche mechanics to these classes, I think that's what really separates the Darktide from a lot of other horde shooters on the market currently, is that you really can properly customize your character on like a very like minute level. It's like similar to an MMO in a lot of ways like that, because
Mhm.
currently most of the horde shooters on the market are pretty simplistic. Like Helldivers doesn't really have that. Space Marine 2 definitely doesn't have that. And some of
Mm.
the older ones, like, Killing Floor 3 isn't even a game anymore. But as far as Darktide goes with new classes, they've really
They shut the
put.
servers down for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're still up. They're still up for now. But the
Oh,
point
for
is
now.
that Darktide, for all the faults of Fat Shark, they do a great job on their overall balancing and like trying to put some
Yeah,
effort into
and
like reworking their perk trees and stuff like that. I expect the Skitarii would have a pretty unique aspect, and having these augments, I think that's a great idea. I think that really fits the theme of a Skitarii in general, which is supposed to be like you have basically been the premium of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and having these elite
yeah.
units in Darktide, I think it's about time for something like that.
It also just like, there's elite players, and obviously the meta will be what the meta is. For many players at the very like high end of the game, the sweats will always optimize the fun and everything. And so like
Sure.
there will be a best thing, right? If you have like, a choice of 3 different augments that make the class play like super different, they'll find the one that's the best. But for many players, like that's just added value. Like if you're not a super serious player, you're getting to play this class in like 3 very distinct ways, which is something that I think that they try to do with a lot of Darktide classes, but don't really like nail. And there's classes like the Zealot who pretty much just have like, their distinct ways of playing are like stab aggressively, stab sneakily. like,
Yeah,
so I think that they
Zealot's
could,
pretty straightforward on
yeah, I
that
think
front.
they
Yeah.
could definitely play into that sort of thing and really like try to diversify, because that's something about that's very like that's something that's very like much a hallmark of the Skitarii, is that they are modular. Like they can
Very
augment
adaptable.
themselves through different environments. Yeah, they like literally are able to just like disassemble themselves and reassemble themselves with different parts to fit different environs. And I talk about that in my Skitarii video, like going into like they're like the different branches of Skitarii, where like there are very clear cut ones that are just like designed to be like frontline tanks, like they're melee wielders that have like basically they have like suits of armor that are powered by I don't remember, it's not like uranium, but it's a radioactive energy source, and it's like they irradiate
Oh,
themselves
that's
but
cool.
also like all the enemies nearby them. So it would be like and they're called Vanguard. So I think that would be like an obvious choice, and it was like looking at those was just so in the codex for them is like you could very easily like 1-to-1 see how that could be brought into a game. And I think that like I can't think of like any games, at least in like modern era, that have really had Skitarii or AdMech. And I think that's probably a big part of like the demand for it, is like Fat Shark would realize it really well,
Yeah, the
and make it
AdMech
feel
are
cool to
primarily in
play.
like RTS games at the moment, which is kind of
Mhm.
interesting. And or just like turn-based strategy like Adeptus Mechanicus 2 that's coming out pretty soon here. Now, on the
Yeah.
note of like casual players finding more value in classes like this, like multiple play styles, I think that's a great point in that most players, like when they come back to Darktide for a brand new class, they're going to be like, okay, I want to try out all the builds and then I'll quit playing. It's like the more builds you have for these
Yeah.
classes, the more you can talk about, the longer players are going to stay around. I think that's what Fast Shark does want, obviously, to some degree, and having a Skitarii in the game, that's a great option for that. And even though AdMech in general are just like one of the most popular things in 40k, Skitarii are unique even among AdMech, which is why I think they've been basically asked for since the game came out. Because I first heard about Skitarii and Darktide as like a requested thing when it like in the initial beta launch period, because it really
Yeah.
does just like fit the reject aesthetic. And a big issue people were having in the game of like having a Skitarii actually added is that they're just too elite for where Darktide's currently at. But
Yeah.
like after the
Yeah.
addition of the RBDs, I feel like people just don't really care anymore because RBDs, they're not
It's
like super elite, but they're pretty up there for like in
They're
a lot of
definitely
cases.
way more elite than what rejects are supposed to be. And in the other thing that, and I made this again, I made this point in my video about it, is like, okay, like, it doesn't really necessarily matter that like, oh yeah, they're technically more powerful or whatever than the rejects. Well, first of all, like rejects as they play like in the game are more powerful than the Space Marines. It certainly
Oh,
feels like
definitely at
they're
times it feels
crazy.
like it really depends what they're
But
fighting, but like Plague Ogrins and stuff like that. It gets
yeah,
kind of nuts.
you can like solo a Plague Ogre and as some like chump, fucking piece of cloth.
Named
But
Ogrin,
the rule of cool is the first thing that applies here, right? It's just
especially these
if
days.
you can like make it work, you can make the lore work around it. And that really comes down to, I think, the biggest question that Fat Shark will have to answer, or like, for themselves, is like, how can we get GW to let us do this? Because for so far they've sort of treaded this like kind of untrodden path, right? Like RBDs and is kind of a recognizable property. Like there's been some pretty recent materials that have had like an RBD's focus, but like zealots and ogrins and all that stuff are not really like big fixtures in the lore. Psychers are a little bit more important, but the more and the closer you get to like the I don't know what you call it, the most precious IP of GWs, the more
Astartes,
they're gonna
Adeptus Mechanicus, yeah, they
there's
become very close to home with that one.
there's a reason I think in addition to the fact that like it's just not the power scale of the game that they haven't like put Plague Marines or anything in yet, and I think it's probably because like they need to get that approval. Like you have to sign off on something.
Oh
that
yeah,
says,
if you
like,
want
oh
to
yeah,
add
we're gonna
a
have
Depth
rejects kill a
Guard,
Plague Marine.
yeah, if you want to have Depth
It's
Guard
like,
in Darktide, yeah, they're not gonna let that
yeah,
slide because they want to have like they will just
it,
refuse to have their Astartes look weak ever. So you'd have to
right.
have like a
It would have to be
serious
some sort of
mission
set
around it. Yeah,
piece.
that'd be pretty big.
Yeah, it'd be like a full thing, like a whole ass endeavor in order to like not even maybe you wouldn't even kill them, but like wound them and they retreat or something like crazy like that. So, yeah, like I think that that's probably one of the things they'll come up against in adding a Skitarii or any class that's in AdMech is like it's just such a
They
more
could be
popular
ramping up the
thing.
power scale for something like that, where they want to add in more powerful characters. Because, like,
It could
well,
be.
I think part of it could be like the Arbites. Obviously it launched alongside the Rogue Trader DLC, so like Arbites, I feel will probably be stronger thematically or like in lore than the next class we get. We don't know what the next class is yet. I don't think it will be a
Right.
Skitarii. I imagine Skitarii would probably come out next year. With because like you said
They
before, they might
have to
have
be
like
pushing for Skitarii, yeah.
at least
It's
at
not I
least a
don't think
tech
it's this one,
adept at
but
the very least. But
yeah.
they're definitely
It's
push for
it's
AdMech.
gotta be on their radar because like they're not blind. Like, when I poll my audience, when you poll your audience, they're all saying we want AdMech, we want Skitarii. Like that's the number one demand out of people, followed shortly by Sister Battle. I for a number of reasons, and we can talk about that in a different video. I don't really think the Sister Battle would be like a fit for
Yeah, they're
Darktide,
just Zealots
just because we've already got the
2.0,
Zealot.
pretty much.
We've already got the
Zealots
Zealot
2.0,
kinda.
except OP is pretty
Zealot
much what they are, yeah.
titties, yeah, pretty much, yeah, like blessed in titties, and yeah, so I just don't think like that's probably coming, but 100% they have heard our calls on Skitarii on AdMech, and like they've got to be looking for a way to do it because like at the end of the day, it's such a cool idea. Like if I was a game dev, I would 100% want to be developing for that because there's so many cool like fucking ideas you could explore there, but also like
Like
the
team
paycheck at
buffs,
the end of the day is gonna be
DPS
massive.
output, or like just playing like a general support
Yeah,
class. A lot of
there's
cool things you could do, like having a more, I'm glad you brought up the Psyker before, because Psyker is like the only class in baseline Darktide that has like an entirely unique mechanic and the peril mechanic around it. I always thought that
yeah.
was pretty interesting, like gives you an entirely different thing to play around with. And that was in baseline Darktide. So like clearly Fat Shark will go above and beyond in like some cases to like really change up how some characters play.
Mhm.
Now obviously that's a little similar to like the heating mechanic of the Bright Wizard in Vermintide, but still I do think that Darktide in particular, Fat Shark in particular, is willing to really go all out with new class ideas and completely change up
Yeah,
the
I
play
think so.
styles, and Skitarii give them a ton of room to work within that. So hopefully Games Workshop does give them the green light to actually put in Skitarii, or at least like a tech adept or something like that. Because we already have Adeptus Mechanicus in Darktide on the ship. We have Hadron and things like that. So being able to actually play as these guys, I think that's huge for players and just gives them a ton of gameplay opportunities.
Yeah, I just think it's probably like, it's been only 6 months or less than that even since we've gotten the RBs added, which I think they were kind of like down to the wire on getting that out. But it's probably going to be very involved to develop the AdMech because like potentially it's so different. And I think that like if they were going to release it, they'd want to do it absolute justice because it is such a beloved
Oh,
property.
it would be the biggest class Darktide's ever had by
It
far.
would be way bigger than RBDs and way bigger than whatever else that I really can't.
I would
honestly
be
think of
shocked. I'd
anything
be shocked if
that's
there was
would be
anything
like
come out with.
non-space marine that would be bigger.
Yeah, you'd have to have like a
So like
space marine,
they
maybe
gotta
that.
nail it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Oh, big
like they
time.
gotta nail it, and like but, like, there's so much potential to put like something really crazy and unique with it that I kind of feel like they would probably want to go like Psyker 2.0 and have it be another like caster class that has unique casting abilities. Like this is another thing I was talking about in my like video for the 6 playable class that's coming out, is like we don't have any abilities in the game that are like direct damaging except for a sail. So like maybe this is like an actual like caster class with like caster abilities, but they're like all tech themed, where you can like irradiate an area or
A
something. Like
hybrid caster
there's
would also be
some,
really neat to see.
yeah, yeah. So like you can actually like use your guns, so you can be shooting your guns and meleeing, but also like your abilities are damage casting instead of doing the psyker style where like instead of shooting, you are standing there like using your staff all the time. And yeah, like that could
Something I
be
think they've
a
done
really cool
really well
version.
recently with things like RPs especially is giving the characters like a very unique identity within the class. Like for me personally, I feel like RBDs is far more distinct than say like any of the Zealot voices. Psyker has some pretty good ones, but they've really like
That's
went
true.
above and beyond to like make sure the interactions feel pretty interesting. And having an Adeptus Mechanicus like elite unit interact with things like an Ogryn, a Zealot, a Veteran, and stuff like that, that opens up a ton of opportunities. Because like what a lot of people play Darktide for, I know it's not like gameplay is number one, but there are people that come to Darktide because they just love 40k, they want to see an Adeptus Mechanicus, and they want to see an
Mhm.
Adeptus Mechanicus interact with an Ogryn, and having a Skitarii interact with an Ogryn, that's a pretty rare interaction, and I feel like it would draw
Truly.
quite a few people to actually like take a look at that. So I'm
I
curious what
think
you think about that.
Yeah, no, I think that like this is something that like when you're like, like doing RP like in D&D or whatever you're doing it in, it's like it's always great to build your character from like one solid idea. And I think that's why RPDs has such a sell on that is like, you know, he is upholding the Lex, like whether you're the Maul or whatever other voices. I can't remember what the other voice names are. I always choose the Maul because he screams a lot
Oh
and
yeah,
it
me too.
gets CC'd by the Chaos Spawn. But the like the thematics behind like how he makes decisions and therefore like how it guides his interactions with other characters and like just the way they like uphold themselves in game is just like what you're playing as, right? It's a very simple idea. It's very like cool. It's kind of badass. It's kind of funny at the same time, and I think it's just such a great marriage of concepts. And so if they could just take that, I don't actually know like what like Skitarii like do or like personality wise. As far as I understand, like technically like a lot of times they don't even have personalities, like they're just like husks that basically are being controlled
I'm
by
sure that they
their
would
mothership, right?
Uh,
Sometimes they
I'm sure they
do,
would
right?
give them like some kind of like
Yeah.
personality for the game because obviously Darktide needs that, and like not everything is always one to one in Darktide. I mean, we talk about lore accuracy in 40k all the time, but there's not a single
Mhm.
40k game that's like 100% accurate to the tabletop, and the tabletop isn't even accurate to its own codexes at times with like between certain units, and let alone the Black Library books. So I think there's a lot of wiggle room in there, or a lot more wiggle room than people are willing to accept at times.
Yeah.
But it's always a
Again, rule of cool, like
controversial,
make it
yeah,
work.
a controversial
It's
topic, especially with 40k.
it'll be it'll be like, I mean, it'll be cool whatever they way they rule it. But like, think about like the characters that are already within Darktide. Uh, there's Kayaks, who is a servitor, and he is very popular with the community. People love him. He pisses me the fuck off. He's the servitor that talks really, really slow in the loading missions. I literally downloaded a mod just so I can skip him talking. But like, people love his like personality. He's like got like a dry sense of humor, and like all the other interactions that the other Morningstar characters have with him. Like he's definitely a fan favorite. So yeah, I feel like that's one thing that they probably don't get enough credit for is like over time the cast of characters has really developed. It was something that was notably lacking when the game started, as opposed to Vermintide 2, which had like absolutely beloved characters.
Oh yeah, like
And
Barden,
so yeah, absolutely.
Wildfire.
So like, but now like I think people are getting quite accommodated to the Morningstar characters, and so like whatever they add in, I'm sure they'll make it like funny, and just the more like interesting characters from all walks of life, or all walks of, I don't know, whatever you call life in the 40k universe, uh, just the better. Like so,
I am glad you actually
these
brought that
interactions
up
abilities.
here because Darktide did originally like ship with this like promise of like a major story, and as these new classes have come out, we've had like pretty much the biggest story jumps like last year especially, and a lot of that is tied around the new classes. I imagine the
Yeah,
upcoming class is also going to have a huge story leap because really in 40k when Darktide originally launched, they talked a lot about like we're going to have a major story focus for like some of the best writers we can possibly
I
bring on to
know.
do this, and like story,
I
like
bet.
as far as I am concerned, story is like actually non-existent in Darktide. Is something I don't pay attention to at all. But if
I
they
think for a lot of players
properly,
that's true. Yeah.
yeah, I think like, I mean obviously there's stuff there, but like most people not care
They
because it's just not
they
properly
need enough
presented to
like
them.
connective tissue to sell it, I think is sort of where they're at now. Is like, okay, yeah, like we need the bare minimum. I think they've probably realized that like most players aren't engaging with it for the storyline, but like,
Yeah.
for introducing the RBDs, they absolutely had to do something to explain like how RBDs are going
Yeah,
to
why wouldn't
enter
RBDs
themselves
be there?
onto a rogue trader ship. Like it doesn't make any sense. And also why are they allying themselves with this cause when they should just be upholding the Lex? Well, it turns out that there's all this like political drama around it, and they've kind of like reached an uneasy truce with the management aboard the ship. So yeah, they could make it work. And like again, I think that like yeah, we've kind of put the overall plot of Darktide on pause for like a very very long time. Like there's
Not
supposedly
much to
some stuff
pause,
going on
not
with like
much to
Nurgle.
pause, to be honest,
Like,
but
well, there was like some Nurgle cultist summoning rituals going on, but
yeah,
like,
I
I don't
mean,
know if
Dark
that'll ever
Communion
be
was cool with
included.
that. That was a good
Dark,
map. But
Dark Fusion a year ago
I feel
or
like
more.
they're saving their big reveal because, like, let's say, okay, hypothetically, let's say they do actually have
Mhm.
a Plague Marine. Now, I feel like a Plague Marine has to happen eventually. It should be like a set piece of some kind.
Absolutely, yeah.
Personally, I feel like it probably would be a boss fight of like some major stipulations, but Plague Marines
I mean, you've
that would
you've
bring players
got
back.
the Karnak twins. It's like they're pretty powerful in their own right. Like they are they're wielding plasma guns. They're definitely superhuman in their strength. So like they're not afraid to throw enemies at us that are like above what rejects would actually be able to handle like in lore or on tabletop. So yeah, I could definitely see that being added, and that's something we should definitely talk about. Is or maybe we already have talked about, depending on when the release order of these videos
Yeah,
is like,
some
yeah,
Death
the
Guard.
Plague Marines coming from like the Death Guard Codex, which is where all the other enemies are pulled from for Darktide. Uh, but yeah, I think
Yeah, they
that
can't put those guys in because they're just too damn strong at times. But they'll probably find a way. They'll probably find a
yeah,
way.
I mean, especially if we are able to get Skitarii in here, like we could just power scale everything up, and
Oh, definitely. And I feel that's kind of
I
where we're
mean,
headed is that like
Ogren could
having
do it,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean Ogrins are not weak at all.
Ogres are
Ogrins
technically strong.
have
Psychers are supposed to be super strong too. So like, if we're actually fully realizing
all right,
the lore implication power of these
if we're
characters,
power scaling the characters we have in the Rejects team, like Zealot and
yeah,
Veteran are like kind
Zealot
of bums, and
suck.
then we
Yeah,
just
they're
have
just
like
like a guy with a gun, and we've got a guy that can like literally just like psychically explode everyone's heads
yeah,
from
Psychers are our top
like an
one. I
entire
don't think it's even
army.
close, like
Yeah,
depending on the
yeah,
obviously the level of the Psyker, but Psychers are potentially number one, and Ogrins have been known to occasionally like body armored Terminators. But either way,
yeah.
I think the power
So
scaling
Skitarii
is like
not
it's
out of question.
yeah, so they're not out of the question at all because like Ogrins are definitely up there. Psychers are 100% up there. And it's always like one of those things where like two of these classes are just way stronger than the other ones. RBDs are also quite powerful, and I assume the next one will also be pretty strong. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a bum. But either way, I think that's pretty much everything we wanted to cover on talking about the Skitarii here. Have any
Yeah, man.
closing thoughts on this?
No, just Fat Shark. If you're listening to this, yeah, please Skitarii. I know that you guys have heard it a million times, but yeah, it would just be so amazing, and like I think it would make people super super happy
Yeah,
and
whatever
excited about
demands
it.
Games Workshop asks of you, please take them.
Yeah, just cave to them.
Just
Like if
cave
they
to
want to take
all.
100% of your profits, I think it'll be worth it
Yeah, probably
because
worth
I
it.
think the I think the major thing that I think makes you really excited for Skitarii, and I'll wrap up after this, I promise, is like it's such a big property, and like Darktide, it just doesn't have that many big name things that are pulls for people to play it. Like it's in the 40k universe, but it doesn't have anything that's like big and recognizable. And this would be so big for the game.
Yeah, the
And I
most
always want
recognizable
my
thing is
favorite
probably
little
just a
Darktide
Psyker and
to
Ogre.
succeed. Yeah, like you can play as those, and I think it's a pull for people. But like being able to play first person horde shooter as a admech would just be
They would be amazing.
like amazing. It would be huge for within 40k
I mean, I'm getting
universes
excited just thinking
entirely.
about it,
So
to be honest.
yeah, I know.
That's
All
super
right,
cool.
let's yeah.
Right. Well, on that note, guys, go subscribe to Mr. E's channel if you're not watching on Mr. E's channel,
Yes.
and subscribe to
And
me
if
if you
you
like
are,
content
make sure
like
you already
this.
are.
That's true.
Yeah, and
Make sure
yeah,
you're
go
already
over there
subscribed to
to
Mr. E.
FTG First Tour Guardsman. Go to subscribe to Second Tour Guardsman. He's my favorite First Tour Guardsman
We hate that
bootlegger.
guy.
He just like
We hate that guy.
he just takes all of his clips from stream and just uploads them. It's pretty awesome.
I can't believe that guy. Really, like AI has gone crazy. Either way, guys, thanks for watching. Let us know what you think about Skitarii as a class in Darktide in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.